When most people picture SpaceX, they picture the rocket. And honestly, that is the most spectacular part. But it is not where most of the revenue comes from. In 2025, customer launches and space programs accounted for only about 22% of SpaceX revenue. The real engine was Starlink, an $11.4 billion connectivity business that generated more than $7 billion of adjusted EBITDA. And once you see how the rockets, the network, Starship, and even AI connect, the bull case gets a lot more interesting. Let me show you. The first thing to understand is that today's SpaceX reports three major segments: space, connectivity, and AI. Inside space are the businesses most people already know: Falcon launches, Dragon missions, Starship development, lunar programs, and government work. Connectivity includes residential Starlink, enterprise and mobility service, government networks, and the emerging direct-to-cell business. And the AI segment includes X advertising and subscriptions, Grok, enterprise AI products, APIs, and compute services. But this is not just a collection of unrelated businesses under one roof. The bull case is about a vertical stack. At the bottom, reusable rockets provide access to orbit. In the middle, satellites create global networks. At the top, SpaceX sells subscriptions, managed contracts, mobile coverage, government capability, and potentially AI services. That shared infrastructure is the point. The rocket is the distribution system. The network is the recurring business. And every improvement in manufacturing, launch cadence, or satellite capacity can strengthen several revenue lines at once. So first, let's look at the business everyone already knows. SpaceX earns money from space in two different ways, and it is important not to mix them together. The first is launch services. A commercial customer or government agency pays SpaceX to place a payload into orbit, and revenue is generally recognized when that payload reaches its intended destination. The second is launch and development work. These are longer programs involving spacecraft, Dragon missions, lunar systems, Starship development, and other government-funded capabilities. Revenue arrives across milestones and over time. In 2025, launch services were about 63% of space segment revenue. Development and mission programs supplied the other 37%. Together, the segment produced just over $4 billion. The contract values show the credibility of the platform. NASA's Human Landing System work has a potential value of roughly $4.3 billion. SpaceX's Commercial Crew contract value has reached about $4.9 billion. And the Space Force's National Security Space Launch Phase 3 Lane 2 award carries an anticipated value near $5.9 billion. Those figures span years. They are contract values or ceilings, not 1 year of revenue, and they should not be added together like a backlog number. The bull point is different. Demanding customers keep choosing the system. That supports launch demand, validates reliability, and helps fund capabilities that SpaceX can use elsewhere. Still, $4.1 billion of space revenue is only one part of this story. The real strategic value becomes clearer when we separate the launches SpaceX sells from the launches it uses for itself. SpaceX completed 165 Falcon launches in 2025. That number is impressive by itself, but the split is the important part. Only 43 were customer launches. The other 122 were internal launches, primarily used to deploy SpaceX's own constellations. When SpaceX launches its own Starlink satellites, it does not record imaginary inter-segment launch revenue. The deployment costs are capitalized in the connectivity business. So a huge amount of launch activity creates economic value that never appears as space segment sales. That gives SpaceX a flywheel competitors struggle to copy. It manufactures the satellites. It launches them on a reusable fleet. It operates the constellation. It sells the service. And then recurring network economics can support more satellites, more launches, better hardware, and lower unit costs. Falcon is not valuable only because outside customers buy launches. Falcon is valuable because it gives SpaceX a dedicated distribution system for the largest low Earth orbit network in the world. The launch business builds the network business, and the network business gives the launch system constant internal demand. Now we can get to the engine that is already producing the financial transformation. Starlink service lines grew from 2.3 million in 2023 to 4.4 million in 2024 to 8.9 million in 2025. By the end of the first quarter of 2026, the count had reached 10.3 million, more than double the year earlier level. Connectivity revenue followed that scale. It grew from about $3.9 billion in 2023 to $11.4 billion in 2025. And this is not growth without earnings. Connectivity generated about $7.2 billion of adjusted EBITDA in 2025. It also produced roughly $4.4 billion of operating income. That makes connectivity the largest revenue segment and the main source of segment profit. Consumer service alone contributed about $2.4 billion of the segment's year-over-year revenue growth in 2025. But there is an important tension inside those numbers. Annual subscriber ARPU declined from about $91 per month in 2024 to $81 in 2025. In the first quarter comparison, ARPU moved from $86 to $66. That is partly the result of growth in international markets and lower-priced service plans. So falling ARPU is not automatically a broken thesis, but it cannot be ignored. The bull case works if subscriber growth, manufacturing efficiency, launch economics, and lower terminal costs outrun that mixed pressure. If revenue and profit keep compounding while more people get a cheaper product, the platform becomes stronger. If price pressure rises faster than efficiency, the quality of that growth changes. This is why subscriber count alone is not enough. We need to watch revenue, operating income, network capacity, churn, and cost per connection together. Residential Starlink is only one layer of connectivity. The 10.3 million service line figure does not include directly negotiated, managed, enterprise, and government contracts. That means the public subscriber number does not capture the entire commercial footprint. SpaceX is taking the same constellation into aviation, maritime, land mobility, remote industrial sites, and resilient backup networks. For an airline, a cruise operator, a shipping fleet, or a remote mine, connectivity is not simply home broadband in a different location. The hardware, service level, integration, support, and contract structure can all be different. These deals take longer to win, but they can be stickier and more valuable per account. Enterprise activity contributed about $1.4 billion of connectivity's 2025 year-over-year growth. And the strategic advantage is straightforward. SpaceX does not need to build a different constellation for each market. One network can serve a home in a rural community, an aircraft crossing an ocean, a cargo ship, a truck fleet, and a corporate failover connection. The same satellite capacity can reach multiple customer types, while specialized hardware and managed contracts create new ways to monetize it. That is the expansion path. Same constellation, higher value use cases. And when connectivity becomes mission-critical instead of merely convenient, reliability becomes a competitive moat. That reliability also matters to government customers. SpaceX participates in civil space, human spaceflight, national security launch, and secure satellite network programs. Starship extends the network model into secure communications, Earth observation, and hosted payloads. The Space Force's 2025 National Security Space Launch Award assigned SpaceX an anticipated contract value of roughly $5.9 billion, with 28 projected missions in that lane over the program window. NASA's commercial crew contract value has reached about $4.9 billion after additional missions were added. Again, these are multi-year award values. They are not immediate annual revenue, but they matter for three reasons. First, they can create durable demand. Second, they validate the technology with customers that have very high reliability and certification requirements. And third, the capabilities developed for government programs can improve the broader platform. That does not remove schedule risk, procurement risk, or government concentration. It does raise the barrier for a new entrant that wants to offer an equivalent launch and network system. This is not a story about secret weapons or dramatic military imagery. It is a story about infrastructure credibility, launch, crew, secure communications, and long-duration demand. The next expansion could be even larger because it removes the dish from the equation. Starlink Mobile has already reached about 7.4 million monthly unique devices across roughly 30 countries. The system is supported by around 650 dedicated mobile satellites and partnerships with roughly 30 mobile network operators. The initial product is simple to understand. When an ordinary phone moves beyond a terrestrial tower, a satellite can help bridge the dead zone through the user's existing mobile provider. That turns Starlink from a service purchased mainly by people with terminals into infrastructure that can potentially touch normal phones, vehicles, sensors, agriculture, and logistics. The longer-term roadmap includes broader data, voice, Internet of Things service, and potential 5G capability. Those features are future expansion, not all current proof. Spectrum is one of the keys. SpaceX agreed to acquire 65 megahertz of US and certain global spectrum rights from EchoStar for $19.6 billion in equity and cash consideration. Closing is expected in November 2027, subject to approvals and conditions. That is a massive commitment, and it creates both opportunity and risk. More spectrum can support stronger service and a larger addressable market. But the economics still depend on regulation, technical performance, partner agreements, and what portion of the value SpaceX can retain. The question is not whether satellite-to-phone coverage is exciting. It clearly is. The investment question is whether SpaceX can convert that coverage into high-margin wholesale revenue at global scale. And this brings us to the capacity bottleneck. Falcon 9 has already built the current flywheel. Starship is designed to increase what that flywheel can deploy. Falcon 9 is listed at roughly 23 metric tons to low Earth orbit. Starship is designed for roughly 100 metric tons. SpaceX says its V3 Starlink satellite is designed for 1 terabit per second of downlink capacity, and that Starship could carry up to 60 of those satellites in a single launch. Put those claims together, and the company estimates that one Starship launch could deploy about 20 times the Starlink capacity of a Falcon 9 launch. 20 times the capacity per launch. If SpaceX achieves that at a useful cadence and cost, the business implications are enormous. More capacity can support more subscribers. It can improve performance in congested regions. It can create room for direct-to-cell bandwidth, enterprise service, faster satellite refresh, and potentially new compute workloads. But every word of that sentence depends on execution. The 100-ton payload is a designed capability. The V3 deployment and 20 times figure are company expectations. Starship still has to prove repeatable flight, payload deployment, reusability, regulatory clearance, and operational cadence. The latest prospectus says the 12th flight test in May 2026 debuted the next-generation Starship vehicle and Super Heavy booster. That is progress. But a test program is not yet the same thing as an operating logistics system. So Starship is not the current engine of this thesis. It is the multiplier. The gate opens only when the vehicle becomes reusable, repeatable, and economically useful. Now for the part of SpaceX that is easiest to overhype. AI. The current AI segment generated about $3.2 billion of revenue in 2025. That includes real monetization from X advertising, X and Grok subscriptions, enterprise and government AI products, APIs, and third-party compute services. By March 2026, X and Grok had about 6.3 million active paid subscribers, while the company cited roughly 550 million monthly active AI users across Grok and X. That is meaningful distribution. But the financial profile is nowhere near connectivity. In 2025, the AI segment posted an operating loss of about $6.4 billion. Negative adjusted EBITDA of roughly $1.2 billion, and $12.7 billion of capital spending. So AI is not currently funding the SpaceX flywheel. It is consuming capital at extraordinary scale. The bull case is that SpaceX could integrate compute, AI models, consumer distribution, satellite connectivity, and eventually launch infrastructure in a way no other company can easily match. The most ambitious version is orbital compute. SpaceX has discussed a long-term goal of eventually launching 100 gigawatts of compute per year. That is a moonshot scenario, not a current revenue line, not a completed system, and definitely not something that belongs in a base case model today. The opportunity is unique vertical integration. The risk is that AI absorbs cash faster than it creates durable economics. For now, I treat AI as the wild card. Real revenue, huge distribution, enormous capital requirements, and a wide range of possible outcomes. Now we can put the economics together. In 2025, connectivity generated $7.2 billion of adjusted EBITDA and $4.4 billion of operating income. Space produced about $653 million of adjusted EBITDA while carrying heavy development spending. Space research and development alone reached roughly $3 billion. AI, meanwhile, produced negative $1.2 billion of adjusted EBITDA and required $12.7 billion of capital expenditures. SpaceX also invested about $4.2 billion of capex in connectivity and $3.8 billion in space. These figures are different measures. Adjusted EBITDA is not operating income. Operating income is not free cash flow. And there is no literal dollar-for-dollar transfer from one segment to another. But strategically, connectivity is clearly the current financial engine. Space contains the launch moat and much of the Starship reinvestment. AI contains a large amount of option value and a very large capital bill. The bull case is that investment creates more network capacity, more mobile coverage, stronger enterprise products, a reusable Starship system, and eventually valuable AI services. Those outputs then create more revenue and support the next cycle. Launch, network, cash, scale. That is the platform flywheel. But a great company can still be a bad investment at the wrong price. This is an exciting setup, so here are the 5 things that have to go right. Gate 1. Connectivity growth has to outrun ARPU pressure. Do not watch subscribers alone. Watch connectivity revenue, operating income, adjusted EBITDA, terminal cost, churn, and capacity. The gate opens when the network keeps scaling without sacrificing the economics that make it the engine. Gate 2. Starship has to become an operating system, not just a test program. One dramatic launch is not enough. We need successful flights, payload deployment, reuse, a repeatable cadence, regulatory milestones, and evidence that delivered capacity becomes cheaper. Gate 3. Enterprise and mobile reach have to turn into higher value revenue. Watch airline and maritime fleet conversions, managed contract growth, direct-to-cell usage, mobile partner launches, spectrum approvals, and unit economics. Coverage and device counts are proof of demand. Monetization proves the business. Gate 4. AI has to show operating leverage before capital intensity dominates the story. Watch paid users, enterprise and API revenue, compute economics, adjusted EBITDA, and capex. Orbital compute should remain optionality until the technology and the cost structure become credible. And Gate 5. The valuation has to leave room for execution. SpaceX priced its IPO at $135 in June 2026. At approximately 4:15 p.m. Eastern on July 15th, the stock was trading near $135.27, almost exactly back at the offering price. With roughly 13.2 billion shares outstanding, that implies an equity value near $1.8 trillion, or approximately 95 times 2025 revenue. That is an extraordinary valuation. It already assumes that Starlink keeps scaling, Starship becomes operational, new connectivity markets monetize, and at least part of the AI optionality proves valuable. So the bull case is not simply that SpaceX is a great company. It is that the company can compound revenue and cash generation quickly enough to grow into expectations that are already enormous. The key risks are clear: Starship delay, spectrum and regulatory friction, space debris and capacity constraints, government concentration, AI competition, capital intensity, governance, and valuation compression. I am bullish on the architecture because the pieces reinforce one another in a way that is extremely difficult to copy. But the investment thesis earns its credibility only if all 5 gates keep opening. So here is the SpaceX bull case in one line. Falcon is the moat, Starlink is the engine, Starship is the multiplier, and AI is the wild card. The opportunity is not one rocket, one satellite service, or one futuristic idea. It is a vertically integrated infrastructure platform that can manufacture, launch, connect, and monetize at global scale. If those pieces reinforce one another faster than capital intensity and valuation expectations rise, SpaceX can become much larger than the rocket company most people still picture. If you enjoyed this breakdown, leave a like and subscribe to Risk On Capital for more company deep dives, investment theses, and the stories shaping the long-term market.